finance staff led by Myrta Disick and her staff. Would you all just stand and be recognized, please? These are the hardworking individuals that have worked extensively to getting us to where we are today, and obviously they'll move us in the future as well. I also want to thank the department heads and those folks who have worked on the budget from that perspective. And certainly from my office, I want to thank the deputy city manager who has spent countless hours in putting this thing together and putting things together and moving forward and looking at everything you can possibly can to make sure that we have a sound budget moving forward. I always say I can get it to a penny, but this guy knows how to split a penny. So, congratulations to Craig and all the work that he and the staff have put into this. With that, Mayor, outside of any questions, I'll turn it over, the presentation over to Craig Clay, Deputy City Manager. Thank you.
Mr. Clay, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. Good afternoon, Mayor Harris, Vice Mayor Leon, members of City Council. Today, I'd like to provide some information, as Manager Benson said, on our proposed fiscal year 2023 budget. As we began the budget formulation process back in March, the economic climate in our country began to shift. The economy continued to react to the massive federal spending. Supply chain constraints were present, and the ever-present concerns about COVID-19 were present. Although these things have slowed, there's still uncertainty, and we must continue to be prepared to pivot at any given time. Despite any challenges that arose, though, we've continued to provide the necessary day-to-day services, as well as host national and international events. Our general obligation bond initiative continues to progress. We've completed 2 parks so far this fiscal year, Cloverleaf Park, Andover Park. We've placed a state-of-the-art video scoreboard over at the community center. We ask you to pardon our dust as we continue construction at Lester Brown Park and at Rolling Oaks Park. Over at Bennett Lifter, we've received all the permits necessary to complete phase 2 of that particular project, which includes a building, pavilions, and other amenities that were promised in the bond implementation plan. While we continue to build, parks programming is at an all-time high. Dance, after school, summer camp, digital photography, lacrosse, wrestling, yoga. At our senior center, nearly 20 programs for our seniors are available, including a walking club, computer training, line dancing, chair Pilates, health education, bingo, you name it. Work is commenced on our senior beautification program, which was introduced last year. The first 7 applicants will be complete by the end of the summer. These projects will no doubt enhance the aesthetics of their property and certainly improve the value of their properties as well. Along those same lines, through a combination of stormwater funding, transportation funding, and funding from the Florida Department of Transportation, we will complete in excess of $12 million in public works projects, which will address drainage needs, road resurfacing, sidewalk additions and replacements. And finally, 2 debt obligations have been paid off this year, which will save us over $600,000 in interest payments over the life of those loans. Including that payoff, the city has been able to eliminate over $43 million in debt service since 2013. Certainly there is more to do. Based on our July 1st taxable value as provided by the property appraiser, the city experienced growth once again, as has been the case for the last 10 budget cycles. City's taxable value increased from approximately $5.7 billion to over $6.8 billion. In the chart before you, we've broken that down into 4 groups. You may remember that we were successful in annexing a portion of unincorporated area just east of the city. That brought in a value of approximately $158 million. New construction in the city, estimated at about $222 million. Growth in your CRA, $87 million, and growth of existing tangible property, $679 million. As a result, we're recommending that we maintain the operating the operating millage rate steady at 6.9363 mils. The growth will also allow us to reduce the debt service millage by 0.1214 mils, now giving you a debt service millage rate of 0.6070. Essentially, for the projects that you are completing through your bond implementation plan, you're paying 60 cents for every $1,000 of value of your home, taxable value of your home. Revenue from property taxes, though, is just one component of the general fund budget. The other major components include franchise fees, intergovernmental revenue, and charges for services. Together, these encompass about 85 to 90% of our general fund budget. Franchise fees. So today I'm going to talk through our revenue sources that we know and the ones that are still outstanding. So what we know, we talked about ad valorem or property taxes. Let's talk about franchise fees. You may remember 3 years ago, the city entered into a 30-year agreement with Florida Power and Light, replacing a previous agreement that Florida Power and Light had with Miami-Dade County for franchise fees. So essentially, those franchise fees come directly to the city now from FPL as opposed to the county being a pass-through. We've estimated that revenue source to bring about $4 million into the general fund. Charges for services. As I mentioned, we continue to progress through our bond implementation plan, providing new facilities, new amenities, and new things for people to rent. So we believe that demand for facility rentals will increase, thus increasing our charges for services line item. State revenue sharing at this point is unknown. This is not uncommon, as many years we have gotten to this point and we're not aware yet of our state revenue estimates. But what we do know is this. Municipal revenue sharing is primarily based on gas tax and sales tax revenue. There has been some discussion at the federal level about suspending the gas tax. The federal administration, though, is wanting to make sure that states follow suit. We're unclear as to what the state will do, so we anxiously await whatever the estimate is for municipal revenue sharing. Half-cent sales tax, we have estimated that revenue source to be flat. This is a tax that is levied. It is a statutory formula that determines what municipalities get with half-cent sales tax. It is largely based on population. If we believe what is happening in the economy, and we certainly do, that there may be a recession looming, then we would expect spending to decrease, even though the cost of goods and services have increased. So we are estimating the half-cent sales tax to remain flat as well. Communication service tax is a tax levied on your cell phone bills, cable television, things of that nature. As an economy grows, so does this particular revenue source. We believe that there will be a slight increase. There has been a slight increase in this revenue source over the past several years. We anticipate the same thing to happen this year as well. Although there's very positive news on the revenue side of our budget, growth also leads to increased costs, and we must be prepared for that. This budget currently includes a 4% salary adjustment for all non-bargaining unit employees. In addition, on July 1st, the Florida Retirement System released its new pension rates for 2023. The rates increased by an average of 7.4% across all classes. So we are prepared to handle that as well. What is unknown, though, on the expense side? Let me just say one other thing about expenses. Obviously, we have accounted for the natural increase in the cost of goods and services. The May report showed that the inflation rate was currently around 8.6%. We know that fuel costs are going to increase, so we have accounted for those in our budget. other contractual increases, and just the overall cost of goods and services to run operations. We have included those increases in this budget as well. One key expense that is unknown at this particular time is our cost for insurance. Health insurance last year increased about 5%. That was welcomed after having consecutive increases the prior 2 years in the double digits. This year, we're not clear of what that will be just yet. What we have included is an increase of about 15% on the premiums that we're paying. Every year we analyze our data, our spend data, and then make some determinations on where we are with that. Right now, we do have an RFP on the street for health insurance services. That closes tomorrow. We will see what comes in. It does not mean that there will be a change to our health insurance plan, but what it does mean is that we're looking to see what is out there and certainly see if comparable coverage is available at a lower cost for us. So as we continue to wait on those figures, we will bring better data to you once they come out. We certainly expect these toward the end of the summer. And again, at our meeting on the 27th, we certainly hope that those are available. One other expense that is known is the cost of the CRA. The contribution to the CRA this year will be approximately $1.3 million. Since inception, we have contributed over $2.6 million to the CRA. I want to dig into this a little bit today, Mayor, if you allow me to. The slide that you have before you that says taxable value CRA walks you through the last 3 years of what has happened. When we established the base, it was $373 million approximately. Over the last 2 years, you can see that has increased significantly to now a taxable value of about $621 million. Down at the bottom of the slide, you see what the contribution has been each year since fiscal year 2021. I want to focus your attention on this slide in your presentation that says property tax revenue growth projection. 2021, 2022, and 2023, those are actual numbers at this point. So again, in 2021, we contributed approximately $490,000 to the CRA. 2022, that number was somewhere around $820 million. And this year, we're looking at a contribution of approximately $1.3 million. In fiscal year 2021, you can see that there was a large uptick from the original $372 million base. Represented the $465 million you see there represented an increase of about 25%. From fiscal 2021 to 2022, the growth was 14.2%. And this year, from 531 million to 621, the growth is 17%. There's no reason for us to believe that there will not be continued growth in the CRA. The CRA is the 27th Avenue corridor. As you can see, there's current construction going on, and the anticipated development in the downtown area of the 35 acres is anticipated to be somewhere between $360 to $400 million of development. And so using a very conservative number of a 17% increase in fiscal 24, 25, and 26, you will see that those blue bars and the green bars get much, much closer together. Okay? And what that represents is potentially the CRA outgrowing the rest of the city. Until you get to a point on this chart in 2027, when there's more growth in the CRA and no growth in your general fund. So this is something that we need to begin to have a conversation about. And I wanted to make sure that we brought this information to you so that we could begin to have this discussion. Okay? What's next? We will have our second workshop on July 27th at 2 p.m. Our first public hearing on September 14th, and our final public hearing on September 28th. With that, Mayor Harris, I thank you again for your time and attention. We will answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Clay, I believe the Vice Mayor had a question.
Mr. Clay, good afternoon. You talked about with the CRA outgrowing the general fund, but what happens in what we're looking at 2030 when the CRAs have to sunset? So what do we do? Is it before then or what do we do when the CRA is sunset?
Well, in 2030, I know what you're talking about, Vice Mayor. I think you're talking about, there was a piece of legislation that we heard about that came from the state that said that all CRAs must sunset around 2030. I haven't dug into that legislation. I'm not exactly sure all of the particulars of it, but what we're showing here, and I'm going to go back to the slide, is you have a situation where in 2027, based on here, and again, these are very conservative estimates of growth in the CRA. In 2027, you would have a situation where general fund dollars would be used more than what the increment is, more than what the increase is. You'd have to use general fund dollars in order to place what your requirement is into the CRA. So if you're asking, Vice Mayor, if in 2030 we would be sunsetting the CRA, you may have a situation where you need to talk about doing something sooner than 2030. You could have some options there. One option would be to increase the millage rate. The other options could be to do some of the things that you're talking about.
So we have to have that conversation about the CRA really soon, and so that we could, I see here on the chart that it says in 2026, or if I'm seeing this right, that it'll be balanced with the general fund. So,
well, it could be as early as next year in 2024, where things start to contract a little bit. So if we think back, Mayor, to 2007, in 2007, almost exactly what happened this year, where many cities saw a tremendous amount of growth, that's what happened in 2007. And we all know what happened in the 2 years following 2007. I'm not saying that that is going to happen, but what I'm saying is we have to move forward with cautious optimism. We have to make sure that we're careful in what we do and how we move forward with these things. Because, again, the 27th Avenue corridor is going to grow. The question becomes whether or not we continue to have this exponential growth in other areas. Because as interest rates start to rise, home values more than likely will begin to decrease, which will affect what we have coming in to our general fund.
okay,
Mayor, I have a question.
go ahead, Councilman.
I have a few, but I'm going to go back to the CRA thing. That's the
Yeah,
topic
go ahead.
we're on. If I'm not mistaken, the CRA, our CRA is a special CRA. That is correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
That means it's tied to a purpose, essentially.
That's correct. It
And
is. I'm sorry, Councilman, but I wanted to make sure I
Go
answered the
ahead,
question. The CRA, this CRA is a special purpose CRA designed to build a performing arts center.
Right. Okay. So we have a plan in place for the CRA. So at what percentage would we be able to move forward with the plan so that we won't have this issue that has been presented to us.
What we can do, Councilman, is we can bring you some options on how to build the CRA, if that is the will of this council, potentially without a CRA.
How to build a performing arts center. Yeah.
What did I say?
You said how to build a
You said
CRA.
I'm sorry. How to build a performing arts center without a CRA. I apologize.
Okay, so you say what you can do is bring us a proposal
Yes.
as to how to build a performance arts theater without a CRA.
Yes, what we will do, excuse me, Councilman, is, as we've done in years past, from this meeting, we will bring you a change memo. And in that change memo, it will have detail of if there are questions that you asked today that require us to go back and make some changes or anything like that in the budget document, we generally bring that to you in the form of a memo. In that memorandum, what we can do is we will lay out for you how we can put together a capital stack, a funding a diagram of how we can build a performing arts center without potentially a CRA.
And if we were to build a CRA without,
Performing arts center.
you messed me up. That's what it was. If we were to build a performance arts theater without a CRA, what happens to the funds of the CRA, and what would we be able to use them for?
You would still use those. That would be a part, what you have already placed into the trust fund would be a part of the capital stack that we bring back to you in order to build the center. What we're saying is that going forward, we may want to seriously consider about continuing to place those dollars in the CRA, because here's what you're doing. When you take dollars out of the general fund and place them into that account, you are restricting them. So if the economy is going to contract like we all believe it will, you want to provide yourself maximum flexibility with the dollars that you have coming in. And so you would still use what you have placed into the trust fund already towards the building of the Performing Arts Center. Moving forward, we would take the necessary steps to move in a different direction.
Can you elaborate just a little on, I guess, go in a little more detail as it relates to the CRA, the funds, outdoing the funds for the remaining of the city? What is the issue with that?
Well, the issue with that, so if we refer back to the chart, Councilman, let's take this year, for example. So this year, you had quite a bit of growth throughout the entire city. So there was new construction, there was annexation, and there was growth in other existing assets. Your annexation and your new construction in the general fund, those are one-time hits. Now, we're going to continue to have new construction, but a lot of that new construction is going to be in your CRA. Now, the annexation was a one-time $158 million hit. Certainly, we expect those properties to grow in value, but you'll never get another $158 million from that. Those newly constructed properties that are this year valued at $222 million, likewise, we will continue to expect them to grow, but they're never going to grow $222 million in one shot. So if you add in what I'm going to call normal growth in your general fund, and let's say that growth is estimated to be at about 10%. If your CRA is growing at what we have calculated, and it's a conservative estimate, at about 17%, at some point you're going to get to what we have on the chart, where that blue line is going to be larger than that green line. The green line represents the overall city tax growth. The blue line represents CRA. And so if you get to that point, you could get to a point where in order to cover that increment, you're going to be paying money out of your, what I'm going to call regular general fund into the CR.
Thank you. This may be a little premature, but I would actually love to see a proposal on how to build a performance arts theater without a CRA. More so because I'm looking for years down the line, and like the vice mayor mentioned, I do know that the state is looking to sunset CRAs throughout the state of Florida. So I would love to see what that would look like.
I'm going to include that in the change memo for the 27th.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. So our CRA right now serves as a trust fund.
It's a special purpose CRA.
Okay.
And those dollars are designated for the performing
All
arts.
right, Councilwoman?
I guess the question I have is, how far are we away from actually getting this performing arts? How long has the CRA been in place, and how long do we expect it to take us to get into the zone of actually building this performing arts center? Is that 1 year out, 5 years out, a decade out?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Mr. Manager.
good question, Councilwoman Craig. Can you also talk about what's in the fund now, what we can anticipate as far as dollars are concerned, in order to build what we anticipate the overall cost of the Performing Arts Center?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
So, Councilwoman, right now, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, you have about $2.7 million, including the contribution from this year in the trust fund. That does not include the amount of money that came from the county's increment. You take that 2.7 plus some additional funding sources that I'm going to put in the memo that we bring back on the 27th, and then you can get to what we believe you need in order to build the Performing Arts Center. In terms of a construction, we have some preliminary designs of the Performing Arts Center. So just like any of our other construction projects, you go through design, permitting, and then ultimately the construction phase. Most of these, in terms of a project, you're looking at least 18 to 24 months from the time that you get going. So this project would be no different than that.
Mr. Mayor, clarification. Councilwoman, are you asking how much money it would cost to build the Performing Arts Center? And if we leave the money in the CRA, how long will we gain that money to build?
Yeah, for the most part, because
Okay.
when we start getting into a problem is in about 3 to 4 years,
Right.
right? That's what we.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah, potentially. So 3 to 4 years. So if we continue to go for the next 3 to 4 years in the CRA, the question to me becomes, when do we actually see us beginning to break ground on a performing arts theater? Is that 10 years out?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Mr. Manager.
Councilwoman Craig, so that's, I need to know, I think you got it now.
Yeah,
The number, the amount that we're looking, if it's a year, 5 years out, how much do we save or put in the trust fund over that year to reach the amount we need to build?
Right. So based on our preliminary designs, the total cost to build somewhere between 15 to 18 million dollars. Okay. This is a special bill, so cost per square foot is much higher than it would be on a regular project or a regular recreation building and so on. So that's the dollar amount that you would be looking at. And right now you have $2.7 million in the trust fund. Is that better?
And so when we look at that 16 million that would be left, would that be a financeable amount?
Yes, and I'm
Okay.
going to bring that to you in a document and lay out exactly the funding sources that we can tap into to get you to that number in the change memo.
Okay, and so I guess the question that I'm asking is for a plan. Because if we look at, because I can't really determine what this CRA, the value of it is, until I know where we are headed. You know, like if we are planning 5 years from now to break ground, then what are our costs associated with that? When do we get there? And will this naturally be, an expired entity because of the negativity that it may cause if we don't go ahead and move forward with this anticipated performing arts theater? And I think that we have to determine whether or not that's the way we go. I think.
Right. And that's what I'm going to bring to you in the change memo. The change memo is going to be what the available resources are, what the bill schedule will be, and how exactly we put it together and how we get it done.
And may I also request something with that? Have any preliminary renderings been done, concept drawings been done for this performing arts theater?
Yes.
Okay, and what that whole project would look like?
Yes.
Can we see it when we
Yes.
come back, so that we could really get a sense of what exactly needs what this whole comprehensive development will look like, and what we know concretely that we want to do, and versus what is a vision of what we'd like to do. Is that possible?
That is possible.
Okay.
And there's some other options that I'm sure you guys will address in reference to the 35 acres to it, with what we're talking about bringing over there. So we may have to.
Mr. Mayor, yes, we will
Yeah.
bring those
Okay,
options as
all
well.
right.
But the 35 acres, that don't have to do with the CRA, does it?
Well,
That's private, the 35 acres is privately owned, correct?
It is
It is
privately
privately
owned,
owned,
Council.
but it is in the CRA, so.
Yeah.
That development, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It is privately owned, but that development would play off of what we do at the site where the CRA, I mean, y'all got me, I'm doing the same thing. Where the Performing Arts Center is planned to be.
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
The 35 acres will be connected to where the planned area for the Performing Arts Center. It does, I'm just giving you a visual that the Performing Arts Center is going to be behind City Hall.
Right,
And to the north of there will be the 35 acre development.
right.
exactly. And so that's why it has to be a comprehensive view.
Yeah.
Because I think that even, I think everybody needs to get on one accord when we start talking about a performing arts theater and a hotel and the Publix and, that we need to see it all. To get to me,
I
that,
don't know about the public.
I don't know about the Publix, I was just saying.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I was pulling two things at one. I was giving you a physical location of everything. Budgetarily wise, that they are separate
Okay,
projects.
that's what
Yes.
I was, okay.
I'm sorry, I apologize for that.
Thank you. No, that's fine. Thank you.
Any other questions, Councilwoman?
The other thing that I think is important for me at this juncture, we have a robust Parks and Recreation Department that has done an incredible job beyond I could ever imagine. And as our parks, go under construction and come on board, it seems as if they continue to grow with programming. And so I see where we are anticipating a 4% increase in wages. But is that 4% increase inclusive of additional personnel? Or is it the 4% wages inclusive of or representative of salary increases? Because I think I want to be able to see the difference between what is an increase for the personnel and what is an increase in personnel, to be able to deal with the increase in overall programming that bringing the parks on board and things of that nature is. And as a matter of fact, that's what I'd like to see is called, for me, I'm gonna call it impact. Like the impact of our growth affects everything. And we've got to be able to look at not only wage increase, but human resource bodies increase. And while I'm talking about human resources, I would like to also see a breakdown of our human resources in terms of every department, male, female, gender, race, salary, administration, clerical. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see how that looks for us, because based on this looks like a tremendous amount of growth. An example, just an example, like we got the annexation, like what does that look like in terms of now code enforcement? You know, I don't know if any code will be done, but, you know, code enforcement, is that department going to be affected by that? Does the police now, is that affected by that? So I'm just, I'd like to see those kind of impacts and where we are making the adjustments to be able to make that, you know.
Yeah. I got you.
Okay.
Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, those itemized things will be in the next part of the budget, correct? When
They
we
will.
get
We-
the entire package.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
will give you the line items, but let me address Councilwoman,
Wilson.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman Wilson's,
Craig.
Councilwoman Wilson's question. There was a lot to unpack there, Councilwoman, so I'm gonna take it a little piece by piece. So you started with parks, so let me start there. So Director Murphy and I have sat down and we have taken a comprehensive look at where we want to be. One of the questions that was posed to Director Murphy in her budget meeting was, where do you see the department in the next 3 to 5 years? In fact, that's a question that we ask all of our department heads when they come in to their budget meeting with Manager Benson and myself. And so as we talked through that, Director Murphy and I, subsequent to that meeting, sat down and looked at her entire table of organization and made a determination as to where we need to go. So that included a number of things. The 4% salary adjustment that you talked about, but it also included us making some adjustments to the starting pay for those positions that have been difficult to fill. In addition, some existing employees also, we would look at the positions that they're in to see if they have the capacity to move to a different position that could be higher paying, but obviously it also requires a little bit more responsibility as well. You mentioned code enforcement. In code enforcement, we have added positions to support the annexation and to support overall code enforcement in the city. In terms of police, the same thing. As a part of the annexation application, we had to say what we were going to do and how we would staff those particular departments. And in fact, you hit the departments, code enforcement, police, and public works was another. So we are addressing those in this budget.
I want to be clear about why, one of the reasons why I'm saying that. We had, 70,000 people here for Formula One. That's an event that we had never done before. The Super Bowl came and there was another 60,000+ people that came in. And then we have the World Soccer Cup that will be coming. And those are, just large groups that on tri-quarterly we have into our city that affect our normal operations.
Yes.
You follow me?
Yes.
And so it doesn't seem as if that's decreasing. It seems as if it may increase, maybe not in larger numbers like that, but 30,000, 20,000 for concerts and different things of that nature, which also brings litter into our city. It brings a lot more impact on our roadways. And I do want to commend that. I think our team is doing an incredible job, but I also believe that we've got to have some special teams to deal with these special events outside of our normal operations. And so I don't want to tell anyone how to configure it. I'm just saying I want to see where we have factored that into what we're doing in terms of our budget, how we are ensuring that the personnel and that the equipment necessary or the contracts necessary to be able to help us to be a pristine city and to be a prominent city with the appropriate folks that are in line, because we have more people that are going to our restaurants, and our shopping plazas need to be immaculate. And so whatever it takes for us to be able to get there, we've got to ensure that our personnel is able to do it effectively. You follow me?
I do.
Okay, amen.
Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you. I agree with the councilwoman regarding our personnel and making sure that as we continue to grow as a city, that we are taking into consideration the operations of the city on a day-to-day basis. Because what happens is the lack of eventually rolls down to bad customer service to the residents in which we're here to serve. So I want to make sure that we're looking at it holistically from all angles, all departments that has to do with essentially our residents, our business owners, our stakeholders in our community. So I would like to see that breakdown as well at the next workshop. I'd like to see the amount of positions in different areas and what do you all as the administration think is necessary to properly to do your job and to do it effectively. I'd like to see that broken down, separate from the budget package that we would receive with numbers. I did have a question as it relates to the new construction. Is that new construction as a whole for the city, or is that new construction as the city that contribute to the tax increase?
That's the city's new construction.
That's city's construction, not necessarily like a Chipotle construction or 7-Eleven.
No, that would include those businesses.
So it wouldn't, okay.
The new construction does not include general obligation bond projects because those are not
Got
taxable.
you. That's
These
what I
are
was-
only taxable new construction properties.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Clay, how was that property at Calder? How would that figure into our taxable revenue?
That would figure in positively for the CRA at this point, because Calder is in the CRA. So if they were to develop the property as planned, that would increase that value in the CRA.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, just a comment.
Go ahead,
Craig, thank you. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you, Mr. City Manager and staff, on the work you've done. I met with my HOA and Crime Watch presidents on yesterday, and they expressed some concerns regarding public safety, infrastructure, and social services in our city. I communicated those concerns to our city manager, and I'm confident that he would help us, resolve those concerns. Just wanted to make sure I note that. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Mr. Manager.
Councilwoman Migadar, we have taken that information and we'll be looking over that information in preparation for the next meeting.
Thank you.
In the next meeting, that information will be included in that
Yes.
packet? Okay. Any other questions? Councilwoman Campbell?
I just have one question, Mr. Clay. You mentioned that 2 debt obligations have been paid off. What are they?
There was one bond that was related to property that we had purchased over near the senior center. And there was another debt obligation for debt service on this building.
Here.
Go ahead, Mr. Stevens.
This question is towards infrastructure. I know we laid out a number of projects in this budget, last budget, as it relates to infrastructure, some road resurfacing, sidewalks. Can you give me a percentage of how many, the percentage of completed projects within this past year as it relates to infrastructure?
We have completed 33 projects. I just looked at the spreadsheet the other day. 33 projects that are related to stormwater, so drainage projects, sidewalk infrastructure type projects, and road resurfacing projects. That does not include projects that the state or the county has done on state or county roads. I don't know what those are, but for us, it's 33 projects.
Oh, that's good. Okay. And I also look forward to the funds allocated for infrastructure in this new budget and to see the projects that we would move forward in this new fiscal year. Thank you.
And have we done an assessment over in the new annexation area to determine if there's, I guess, road damage that need to be taken care of and all those things? We've placed that in the budget as well?
Yes,
Okay.
there's considerable work that needs to be done
Yeah, I thought
over
so.
there, Mayor Harris. One of the good things, though, is that when we took over the annexed area, there was a drainage project that the county had already moved, or they were moving forward on. So we were able to obtain some of the plans from them, and we're moving forward with that particular project as well. So it includes some drainage, some road resurfacing, and hopefully as we continue to do that, those properties over there will generate new or different tenants, and they will be able to increase in value as well.
Okay.
I just flipped back through my notes. The utilities, when you was mentioning about FPL, does that include the lighting districts that we took over a few years ago?
Franchise, yes, because those are the lighting districts. Those poles are owned by FPL.
Okay. Where are we as it relates to completing or working within those lighting district with the project that was going on?
FPL, so there are 27 lighting districts. FPL has changed all of the lights to LED lights in all of those districts. What we have found is that even though they did that, there are still some dark spots in our city. So what we did is we conducted a comprehensive lighting study to look at where the dark spots are. So every one of those districts and each segment in that district was assigned a letter grade, A, B, C, D, or F. And depending on that letter grade, we made a determination on a couple of things. One, those districts where new poles may need to be added, or the fixtures that they replace them with may not be adequate. Most of our poles are somewhere between 200 and 260 feet apart in our residential neighborhoods. Best practices, according to the engineers, is somewhere between 150 feet apart. So in those areas where we have identified the need for new poles, we are looking at different mechanisms to be able to place new poles. One of the other initiatives is a smart city initiative. So as those poles get built, instead of just lights, those poles could become camera infrastructure and other types of things that would enhance the quality of life in our neighborhoods.
Do we have a budget for the lighting district project?
We are working on that right now.
So we don't have one from the previous, when we took over the lighting district, we didn't have a budget or an estimate cost as it relates to the improvement?
They weren't doing any improvements, which is the major reason why we took over the district. So there was no budget contemplated as to what they needed to do to improve.
Right, but
That's why
when
we
we,
did the lighting
but when
study.
we took it over,
When we took it over, all we did was we took over the maintenance and operations of it, which is why we did the lighting study. So the lighting study showed us exactly what needed to be done, and now we're in the process of doing those things. Again, adding new poles, changing out fixtures, and things like that. The county never put together a development budget, if you will, because there was nothing really happening in those districts.
what year, I'm sorry, when did we take over the lighting districts?
We took over the districts in 2019.
And we haven't, okay. Okay, thank you. No.
No. Yeah, all right. You got something else here there?
Yeah, no, I had a
Well,
thought
you're
in my
talking to
head,
yourself.
but I stopped, yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Clay, have we budgeted for beautification projects throughout the city?
In terms of the beautification program that we
Yes.
did with painting and
Painting and then maybe foliage and lights and things of that nature throughout the city?
yes, we have a couple of, if you talk, the senior beautification program, we have,
Not just the senior housing, but like along our corridors, beautifying our corridors and things of that
That's
nature.
something standard in our public works budget.
All right.
Our Keeping Miami Gardens Beautiful group, they work through that. Yes.
I just want to make sure I put emphasis on the lighting districts, because as we talk about the quality of life and improving the quality of life. For those dark areas that has been zoned as C or below, we know that it's necessary to give it some attention because in dark moments, I mean, at nighttime, you're now talking about a safety issue as well. So I think the incomplete thought that I had in my mind is that we took over the districts in 2019, but yet there's still no budget or no action towards it.
Well, there has been some action. So when we took over the districts, one, we had to assume all of the payments because all of those are payments that are directly from us to FPL for all of those lights. So the first thing was for us to take an inventory of all of the lights that were there. The second thing was to commission the study. The study is a 380-page document that took some time for the engineers to go through because they actually went out and went through every one of these neighborhoods to put this study together. From there, we then said we have to design what needs to be done. We were under the impression that Florida Power and Light would be doing that because ultimately they would potentially own the poles. That wasn't the case. So we now have to go out and design what exactly needs to happen. That's going to be a multi-million-dollar project in order to add all of those poles. So in order to fund that, we have to be creative and either work through the smart city initiatives like I was talking about, which would get into companies to come in and fund the infrastructure, or we would have to raise the rates in the lighting districts, which is something that we're not wanting to do. So there has been some action, but it's going to take us a little while to get to the end of it.
Okay, is this something that we can put, request funds through the state with our lobbyists and our legislators to provide assistance to?
I think we could put it as a part of our legislative agenda, sure.
So we've never done it before since we took it over?
No, we've never done it before because we were not wanting to own the infrastructure. You follow me? It's FPL's infrastructure. So for us to put a project to the state, I'm not so certain how we can put a project together or ask for funding on FPL's infrastructure. The poles belong to them. The underground belongs to them. The lines and everything belong to them. So in order for us to we can certainly try it. We can certainly make that attempt, but it has not been something that we've done because never have we looked to ask the state for funds related to someone else's infrastructure.
Yeah, I would like that. I would like that we, start having conversation with our lobbyists as well as our legislators. I'm sure my colleagues, as it relates to how do we get funding to assist with this project moving forward.
That's fine. Hey, Council Vice Mayor.
Through the mayor to the manager, can we get Councilman Stevens a list of the areas that's already been upgraded? Because I have quite a few in my area that's already been done, and they've been done throughout the city. But I got that same list from Tom some time ago, so that way he can kind of see what's been done already so far when it comes to the lighting district.
Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead,
Mr. Vice Mayor, we'll certainly provide all that. It's not a problem. I don't know if you have you received it?
I received a copy of the lighting district, but that wasn't what we. Huh? Yeah, and I did a tour of the areas that we took over as well.
Okay.
So you're inquiring about those that haven't been part of the lighting district?
Right.
Okay.
And also about funding,
Correct, and funding.
huh?
Yeah.
We have two that in advance that we can't touch anyway.
Right.
That would have to be-
Yeah, it'll have to go back before them to vote on it.
For the people.
Yeah,
Okay.
to decide
Do
the,
anything in that area.
Two of the districts that haven't been passed.
right,
From the, okay,
The people voted, they didn't vote
Against
for
it.
okay.
So we can't do anything.
That's my first time hearing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked if you do, so based on those districts that failed, that might be the district you're talking about that don't have anything going on because they voted it down.
No,
Well,
majority of the districts that was taken over, we haven't had activity on. There's a few that you, in your district, as you mentioned, that has been improved, but from the list, no,
Councilman, all of the
All of them
districts that
have
we
been
took
done.
over,
Yeah.
the lights have been changed from what they used to be to LED, all of them. What we have found from there is that even with the LED upgrades,
Still darkness.
there are still some dark spots. So when we go out and measure the lumens, I think they're called, they're not as bright as they should be.
correct.
So all of the districts have been touched, so to speak. So all of them have had upgrades. What we're saying is that we believe there need to be further upgrades in order for them to come up to what we want as a world-class city.
Right, and that's what I'm aware of. I'm aware of what you just outlined. So
Yeah.
everything that I'm speaking of is how do we move from there?
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I thought I thought that I was going to ask for clarity. In other words, we have infrastructure dollars that should be coming from the federal government to the state. And those infrastructure dollars are now available maybe for projects like this, that we would ordinarily not want to get involved in. But now that roads and lighting and underground waterways and septic systems can be a part of the improvement, that it may be a time for us to shift our focus onto that. So that's where I thought that was headed. Oh, okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilwoman Campbell, no question? No. Councilwoman Wilson?
I mean, but that's what we're gonna do, right? I'm saying, like, that'll be part of our legislative agenda.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I
That's
do
my
have
clarity.
one more question.
Councilman Stevens?
Yes. You mentioned it very lightly, and I know it's not an official decision or yet from the federal, from the state, as it relates to the gas sale taxes. Should it be suspended? I know it's the Biden administration is speaking about it, or they put something in place and they're urging the states to do that. What is that impact on us? Do we have an estimate of that impact of what that would consist for us as a city?
No, we don't estimate that. The state would estimate that because it's not a very easy calculation to do, because the calculation is, it's by state statute and it's based on population is a large part of the formula. We do know it would impact us negatively. We know that for sure. But it would impact our households positively. So,
Yeah,
Trade-off.
and I just imagine with the knowledge that you and the finance team and our manager has, is that we will take extra steps to be prepared for that, should something of that, magnitude happen.
and that could be the issue of why we have not gotten our numbers for state revenue sharing yet. Generally, we get them about the middle of July. Maybe this is something that they're contemplating before they release those estimates. We don't know, but we certainly check the state website every day, twice a day.
Okay. That was all my questions in my notes. Thank you.
Sure? Are you sure?
I am. Thank you.
It's the time to ask them questions.
Yeah, no, I'm good for now.
All right, all hearts and minds are clear? Thank you, Mr. Clay.
Thank you, Mayor.
I guess. Do I need to make a motion to adjourn this meeting or this workshop?
Yeah, if it's a workshop, there's nothing more before the council, we go ahead and adjourn.
All right. If there's no more questions or concerns, this meeting is adjourned.